podcast. Yeah. Yes, y'all, this is not April Fool's. That was, like a little bit more than a month ago. This is not a joke. We did have to undergo a name change. We are no longer the Real and Radiant podcast, but the Be Real, Be Radiant podcast. What do y'all think? I had to undergo a name change because I actually got DM'd a few days ago, and this girl from the US was like, hey, we have very similar podcast names, which we really did. We have very similar podcast names. I'm currently undergoing trademark processing, and in a very kind and polite manner, she was basically asking if I could change my name. She even showed like a screenshot of when her podcast was started, her first episode was published, which was like end of December, and mine was end of January 2022. So I was like, you know what, sure, like I don't want people searching for Real and Radiant and then coming across yours. I didn't say this, by the way, but I was just like thinking, that's fine. And I told her this. I said, I'm so new to this podcast world anyways. Changing it wouldn't be a problem, and it's true. So I was thinking of different names, and just thinking of other names like that maybe would have been completely different from Real and Radiant, but I really wanted to keep the radiant part, obviously, with the radiant look and that branding part of it. And I was wondering if I should keep the word real in it. And I was kind of going back and forth, and I still really want to keep the word real in it because it's literally like a reminder, and it just shows we are real on this podcast. We are opening up about things that we may have never really shared or spoken about, or just something that needs to be said more of if it's about a certain topic, and be real about it. So what do y'all think? Be real, be radiant. Yeah. BR. This is no longer the R&R, but the BR. Hey. Okay. So now that I've announced that to the whole 15 people out here, no, I'm just kidding. So yeah, I hope, I let's see how long it'll take me to adjust in the intro and not having to say, welcome to the Real and Radiant podcast, but welcome to the Be Real, Be Radiant podcast. So today I wanted to talk about what's happening here in the Philippines. Today is election day. It's actually Monday, May 9, 7:49 p.m. as of right now. And so we are nearing towards the end of election day. And I think the polls actually closed either 5 or 7 p.m. I think 7. So it's done. It's closed. So people in charge, and hopefully the honest people, are counting the ballots as we speak. And so before you roll your eyes and are like, girl, why are you talking about election? Why are you talking about politics on your True Beauty Through Faith podcast? First of all, I'm not going to go that deep. If anything, I kind of have a bad taste of politics. To me, like growing up, I always just saw, and this is nothing on them. Y'all know I love my parents, but I just always saw them watching the news, when they were in the States. They would always watch the news, and like they would just be talking to the TV as if it was real, as if it was human, and just saying stuff and like disagreeing and having these arguments again with the TV. And so it was never something that I was really attracted to, never really wanted to get so too involved in because of it. But I will say that coming to the Philippines and experiencing my first election, yes, this is my first Philippine election. Unfortunately, I didn't get to vote. We went months ago when it was the voter registration day. Some of my family went to one place to go, and for whatever reason, we were they said we've reached max capacity. of voters or we've reached max capacity of voters or of ballots. I'm sorry, you have to go home. And so we literally got like turned away. I've never heard of that happening in any kind of election, in any kind of voting process, but that's what happened. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to vote. But I just want to share my experience over the past 90 days of this election campaign and how it's kind of changed and broadened my perspective when it comes to government and politics. And so it's been quite the ride the past 90 days. Here in the Philippines, you are not just voting for your president and vice president candidates, but you're also voting for the 12 Senate members, and you're also voting for your mayor, and I believe in your party list, which I don't understand what that is yet. I'm gonna have to Google that after I record this. But basically, you are voting for many different people on this one ballot. It's not just for the president or the vice president, unlike in the States, and then all the laws that you agree or disagree with. No, you're voting for a lot of people. And so with this, of course, comes rally upon, campaign projects. You see tarpaulins posted everywhere in almost every corner of the city or the slum. Even you are seeing tarpaulins of faces of candidates and their numbers, which their number on their ballot. And it's nuts. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, wow, this is different. In the States, I feel like you have some signages like outside on your yard, right? And that's pretty much it. You might see a bumper sticker on a car, and that's it. You might see a shirt. As we all know, we've got the hats, Make America Great Again hats from Mr. Trump, and that's it. But like here, they go all out. Even for one candidate, a whole song was made for her campaign. And as I was in Kalibo just the past few days, we're watching videos at home of different rallies from different candidates, and I was honestly watching these videos and being moved to tears just to see the passion people have for their candidate and for the country, for the Philippines. I was in awe. There were because of course it's the Philippines and we are Filipinos, and it's just ingrained in our blood, and it's just natural for us to bring anything out into song and dance. So not only did they make that song for this particular candidate for her campaign, but they also had dancers. They also had videos of what do you call it? When people go out into the mall and do flash mobs. People were doing flash mobs. Can you imagine? Remember that when that was like such a thing? 2012, 2013, something like that. Yeah, people brought that back during especially during the past 2 weeks or so, 3 weeks. And then these rallies also were bringing about thousands and thousands of people. I was researching last night how many people were in a particular rally in the U.S. for any kind of support for any kind of candidate, whether it was Republican or Democrat. But I think the biggest one was for Obama in Chicago. If I'm not mistaken, if my research serves me well, it was like 250,000 people at this rally. And that doesn't even compare to what the Philippines saw these past 90 days, especially this past month and a half, where main city streets are filled and covered with campaign, supporters, or president supporters, I should say. My lingo's not the best in this in this episode, first of all. But I think one candidate had 800,000 people come to the last rally in Makati, which is like one of the a major city here in the Philippines. And can you imagine 800? I think it was either 800 or 870,000 people. And that was just one of the many rallies that this particular candidate had. And that doesn't even include the other candidates and their rallies. Can you guys believe it? So I have just been kind of soaking it all in from left to right. The conversations I've had with people too has been quite interesting. I've heard it all from people from all different sides. There was someone who was giving me a 2-hour. I mean, we were in a car ride going back to Manila. And so we had the time, but I didn't mind it as well because I love learning about history, which she was giving me, and I was just soaking it all in. I was even asking her questions. I was just like really being truly engaging because I was so curious as to this candidate and then their connection with Philippine history. And so she was just talking about her support for this candidate, and for 2 hours was going about how much this candidate and the family did for the Philippines, right? And so I'm asking her questions that I truly had, and even things from my prior research, because this whole election has led me to do even a lot of historical research. And so I'm asking her about that and just being very open-minded about it. And then I've met people on the other side who are basically opposite of this particular candidate, and they were telling me their reasons and why they're voting for them, and it's been really interesting. And on top of that, what I've been finding is that households and families are also divided. I've rarely met a household where everyone is voting for the same person. It's either it's split right down in the middle, or each person is literally voting for a different kind of candidate. And which obviously leads to some division, which has led to some arguments in the family structure the past few months. But it's just interesting, no? Like, I think it's just so interesting how this campaign, or this election campaign, has really just changed things. And I truly believe that this is one for the history books. I really believe that I don't know what the outcome is. Obviously, I don't know what the outcome is yet. But I believe this is really going to go down in history, and definitely whoever will take charge here, whoever will take lead, it will shape up the country, or it might do the opposite in the past 6 years. And as a church, I know for our church, and as for our family, we've just been praying relentlessly that God will put the right people in power, people of integrity, honesty, a genuine care for the country, for people, and will lead the Philippines into a brighter and better future. So there's one thing that I wanted to share from my church, what they shared, and they actually got it from someone else. So it says it's inspired by a post from Norman Season Lau. And I want to share this, and perhaps like if you're in the US and you just can't relate to anything, well, obviously you're going to be having another election in a few years' time. So maybe this is something that we can all just learn and take from. But the first one that it says, so there's 4 points, right? Five. The first one is remember that you represent Christ, not the politician you are rooting for. Remember that your behavior doesn't reflect on your chosen candidate, it reflects on Jesus. Number 2, remember that no candidate is perfect. Don't treat your candidate like gods or goddesses who can do no wrong. This is, you would think, like, who actually would think this way, right? I've literally met people who have said word for word, I idolize so and so. Yes. Number 3, remember that your relationships matter more than politics. Don't permanently destroy your relationships, especially with fellow believers, over something as temporary as elections. So it kind of goes back to what I was saying about families being divided and who they're voting for. Number 4, don't let your passion for your candidate outweigh your love and passion for the gospel. The campaign that matters most is your campaign for Jesus. Our primary mission is to share the gospel and make disciples. I love this one because it reminded me, because I don't necessarily have a passion for a specific candidate, even if I'm not voting, but I think we can have passions for other things in life, right? That we are super passionate about. Like for me, I think, I believe that there were times where I was more passionate about the blog, Fashion Meets God, than I was about Jesus. And supposedly the blog was for Jesus. But I know I had my times of when I was more passionate about the blog than Jesus, because one, I wasn't always dedicating the posts and praying for the posts as I should have. I was just creating content, writing, making sure I was consistent, and then hitting publish. And also, when it came to the fashion part of it and having different looks to post for the blog, I was just spending and getting new outfits almost every weekend. Granted, from the thrift store, but still, you're spending every weekend trying to get new outfits, trying to get new looks together, and that isn't glorifying or pleasing because we're not stewarding our money well. If it's purely just for a blog and to have fresh new content, like no way. So even if you don't have a passion for a candidate, a passion for, a specific person, I think we can all get super passionate about something, a hobby, maybe even our job, and then it could very much take away from our passion for Jesus himself. So that I thought was a really good one. And then last but not least, number 5, let all that you do be done in love. They gave 1 Corinthians chapter 16, verse 14, and it says, do everything in love. And sadly, from the stories that I've heard and have been reading on social media, there has definitely not been love shown at the precincts, at the places where people are voting, as there have been physical fights, which, although not surprised, I'm telling you, the Filipino will ride and die for the country. But there have not been the most honest people, the honest things happening at these voting places. And people have, unfortunately, very sadly, have gotten into fights. And I've heard of a report where someone actually got killed today. So, yes. Yeah. So wherever you are, even if you are not a Filipino, I'm asking you for your prayers over our country, because we need it and we would greatly appreciate it. So that's what I wanted to share today. I know it's a little different than what I usually share about. Trust me, I was like, am I really going to share about that today? And just because it's really affected me, and is something so new to me at the same time, because this is my first one here in the Philippines. I was like, yeah, why not? So I hope you all learned something. I hope you took some value from this episode. Maybe we're enlightened on what's happening in the Philippines and how we do elections here compared to the US. I mean, that's the only other country I can compare it to. So, but yeah, so let's pray for our leaders, guys, wherever country you're in, wherever you are living right now. Pray for your leaders, whether you like them or not. God created them. Honestly, God loves them and sent his son Jesus to also die for their sins as well. And so that's the reality of it. But that's the reality of a God who is sovereign and has an unconditional love for every single human being on this planet. So let's pray for our leaders, pray for your government, pray for the authorities and those in power. And yeah. All right, y'all. Well, I'll talk to you guys on the next episode. I know the publishing dates of these episodes have been all over the place the past few weeks. Sorry, but hopefully we can at least stay consistent here. So I'll meet you guys back on the Be Real, Be Radiant podcast next week. And God bless. Let's get radiant from the inside out.